Columbia professor was strongly advised to retire after an investigation was done into her activities, and it was concluded that she basically broke the university's rules against discrimination, specifically against discrimination of Israeli students, Jewish students on the university. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about what were the activities. We'll go a little bit into also her bio and basically everything that has happened since this has been pretty much going on since January of last year. So welcome to the Daily Objective. Joining me today is Alex. I'll go to Alex to you in a bit. I'll just give a small bio of her. So her name is Catherine Frank. She's a director of the Center for Gender and Sexuality Law. She's also on the executive committees of Columbia's Institute for the Study of Sexuality and Gender and the Center for Palestine Studies. She is among the nation's leading scholars writing on law, sexuality, race, and religion, drawing from a feminist, queer, and critical race theory. I took that from Columbia's official website. It also says that she basically did retire. So Alex, anything you just want to say about her bio right now before we go further into the story?
Listen, I mean, I have a lot of empathy for her, to tell you the truth, because I mean, the same thing happened to me a couple of years ago. I basically, I created like a Ku Klux Klan, group in my university, and all I was doing was just, saying how much I don't like black people, and the I was accused of like racism and fired. It's just so I feel a lot of sympathy with her, to tell you the truth. And I think it's really just really it really upsets me because I just know how much of a loss this really is to the legal, gender, queer, critical race theory community. So I just know that it's just another really giant scholar is going to be missed out there.
Yeah, now going further into the story, so she was on Democracy Now in January. Democracy Now, I always hear it. I still have no idea what it really is. I think it's like a media group that has let's say very left-leaning sort of point of view. So she was there on January last year. And one of the things she said there is so many of those Israeli students who then come to the Columbia campus are coming right out of their military service. They've been known to harass Palestinian and other students on our campus. And I think I don't. Oh, yeah. And she also later said that she also made comments about the that Israeli Defense Forces veterans had doused them with skunk spray, a foul-smelling
She said a
liquid.
chemical weapon, I
Yeah,
think she
yeah.
said. Yeah,
She
chemical weapon.
later
Or maybe
said,
it's a they. Maybe it's they. Yeah.
well, it's they because some of the protesters said they
Hmm.
required hospital treatment due to the, as you have said, chemical attack. Um, yeah,
It was a
I mean,
fart spray.
Yeah, I mean, first of which is still they shouldn't do that. This is not something
Yeah, of
you
course
do.
not.
Uh,
But then actually,
yeah,
ironically, I don't know if I'm sure you already know this, but that student sued the university
yeah,
for discrimination, for the suspension, and I think was awarded like
yeah,
$350,000. Um,
yeah. So it sounds like because of the complaints of the students and of the teacher about those Israeli students that, as you said, they used the fart spray, they were suspended because of it, and then they sued the university and won, basically claiming they were discriminated because of being Israeli. Now, you can still, when you do something wrong, you can still be punished, and there can still be discrimination when, the punishment is too strong. These people especially should understand it who claim, especially when it comes to critical race theory, they claim that in America, that people from the African American communities, even when they commit crimes, they do get harsher punishments. So they should be able to understand that even when you do something wrong, when you break a rule, there and you get punished because of it, there can still be sort of biased way of punishing you because of uh, what you call it, big because of
Discrimination.
discrimination. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about this idea of basically calling the students that go to Colombia from Israel Israel Defense Forces veterans, which technically they are. Like
Yeah.
Israel has
Yeah.
military
I
service.
just, you know, I just want to say, okay, people have this opinion about what IDF service is. People think that it's, you're walking around like with a gun. And of course, there is an element of that, but you have people who are involved in disaster recovery. You have people who are involved, during COVID, in distributing food. You have people who are like, working in all areas of like just civil society, I suppose. And I just think that it's absolutely obscene because to treat like the IDF like it's like the Wagner Group or something, that it's just a gang of like animals that have been let loose in Syria to kidnap people or whatever. And it's a deliberate smear. It's absolutely discrimination. It's painting everything in such a negative light. I mean, listen, these people are such frauds. Here you have this opportunity. You say that you want to, bring peace to the Middle East and justice for Palestine and whatever, whatever, whatever. Here you have the situation. Israeli students, you can try to influence them, convince them into your way of thinking, into your ideology, right? I mean, it's so it's totally disingenuous. It's either the bloody revolution or the LARPing, right, for the bloody revolution, with your red book from Mao, and your $2,000 iPhone. So it's either the revolution or it's nothing. Okay, like since when did Columbia University become the Lamumba Friendship School for Revolutionaries in Moscow? Since when? I mean, I think, I don't know. Like, to me, this is like a phenomenal business decision to get rid of this person.
Yeah, I mean, Colombia has been dealing with it a lot. I mean, we can go a little bit into, well, history, but sort of the last year. But well, first of all, sort of like this, specifically like referring to Israeli students as sort of former IDF and already it's those things which are like, yeah, are true, but by saying it, you're not simply stating, like making a statement. You are trying to imply something. You are trying to imply that this is something bad. And again, would they do the same thing towards Swiss students or Austrian students or whatever else students
Hmm.
that of countries that still have mandatory service? Not to mention specifically when it comes to, she's not because I named this. Technically, she was she was encouraged to retire because of her discrimination against Israelis. But this is discrimination against Jews because again,
Hmm.
they almost exclusively the only people in the IDF are are Jews because Arabs don't have the mandatory service. They can join, and there are some, but I'm highly doubtful about which specific students she had
Yeah.
problems with, and so now, going further, basically what has happened is after she made these statements on Democracy Now, there was a complaint filed by with the university's Office of Equal Opportunity and Affirmative Action. She Frank said harassed members of the Columbia community based on their national origin. Oh, sorry,
Hmm.
said that Frank harassed members of the Colombia community based on their national origin, specifically referring to Israelis. And afterwards she tried to fight it. She basically said, "Whoa, you can't even be anti-Semitic today. What happened to free speech?" Oh, sorry,
Hmm.
that's my
Absolutely.
thing.
Same thing that
She didn't.
happened to me with the Ku Klux Klan, club that
Yeah.
I started.
So
Same
what
thing.
she actually said is the university has allowed its own disciplinary process to be weaponized against members of our community, including myself. I have been targeted for my support of pro-Palestinian protesters. I have come to the view that the Columbia University administration has created such a toxic and hostile environment for legitimate debate around the war in Israel and Palestine that I can no longer teach or conduct research. Now again, Columbia University is is one of the universities that allowed the so-called pro-Palestinian so-called protests go on, allowed students to occupy the buildings for some time, allowed them to pretty much completely take over, allowed them to, in some cases, even harass Jewish students for not letting them go through, basically not even allowing them to be on campus in some cases. Colombia, Shai Davida was from Colombia, or was he from a different university? I'm
I
trying
do
to
believe so.
remember.
Yes, I do believe he was from Colombia. Yes.
Yeah, maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, basically blocked his card so he couldn't access the university. That was sort of for his protection, so-called. Or Shai Davida was a Jewish teacher. So again, claiming that it sort of reminds me of those people who say there is no there is no pro-Palestinian. Oh, he was from NYU. Okay, sorry, my bad. Um, but we have many different examples, even if
Yeah.
this one is for a different university. Um, it reminds me of those people who say there are no pro-Palestinian voices in like Western media or like Western government. Basically,
Yeah.
those people
Yeah.
who view Kamala Harris as like being too pro-Israeli, and it is pretty much there is almost like anti-Semitic view because if any. Okay, Razi now corrects me. Shai Davidai is in Colombia, so
Yeah.
someone in the
You're
chat is
wrong.
getting banned.
Yeah, you're getting
No,
banned.
I'm joking. Um, so yeah. Um, yeah, this like so what I was saying, it is almost like anti-Semitic. The idea that if you support Israel in any way, if you have any sort of, if you believe Israel should exist, that's you
Hmm.
are too far off. You're too far off. And if you don't allow me to say that Israel should be gone, we'll go into what she said in the past. But basically, if you have any sort of respect for Israel, you're basically too far off. Again, Colombia was in trouble had people stop supporting Colombia because of how much they supported the pro-Palestinian protests. So any idea or sort of yeah, in any way that you would think that Colombia is too pro-Israeli, again, your Overton window or your basically view of the world is like so. Maybe she should get out of university and maybe go
Yeah.
touch some
Yeah,
grass to
absolutely.
like see
Yeah.
where people actually are.
Yeah, because listen, this really does remind me of the Chinese Cultural Revolution and the struggle sessions, right? That they would make you have where you would renounce everything, renounce all of your bourgeois tendencies, renounce all of your dirty capitalist thoughts, right? You would turn your parents in. So that's what they sort of want, I think, the Jews to do or the Israelis to do. They want them to kind of publicly humiliate themselves. And if they don't want to do that, well, then you're anti-revolutionary and you have to go. And this entire, from the way that I viewed it, right, this entire experience, this entire charade, this entire just theater has been such a negative public relations experience for Colombia and the rest of them that they're going to have to try to distance themselves from this. It's just, nowadays when people will now see that on a CV, you're thinking, oh my gosh, is this one of these mental people that I saw running around playing terrorists, shouting, free the martyrs, love the martyrs, dressed in keffiyehs, doing their weird dancing. I mean, that's really what I think. So it's degrading the value of I mean, to me, the degree has no value at all. Okay, it really has no value. But so they're really, I would say they're really damaging the brands of this university. And the university is going to have to figure out, like, how are we going to make, 1 and 1 = 2? How are we going to keep the lights on? People are not going to want to donate. People are not going to want to come and pay those that 75 grand a year or something, right, to go to Columbia University for, you can just send them off to Syria to join Daesh for 3 years. It's much cheaper. Why not? They're going to have basically the same type of ideological indoctrination to
Yeah,
me
so
I think
it,
that this is the first step that they can do to try to potentially clear their name. And, whatever this, I really do think that nowadays, I really think that the university system is really going to have to move away from this sort of activist, revolutionary, school of the absurd. They're just going to have to move away from it, because this is really, this is a navel gazing, right? This is what they were doing over the summer and all of last year in Colombia. They were sitting around staring at their belly buttons and doing some meditation and maybe telling some fart jokes. That really is the level, I would say, of education that they were getting. And this will have to just be the first step in order to try to clear the name of education. It'll take a while, take a lot.
yeah, I mean, in some ways, this is really great to see as a because finally someone is, in a sense, someone is getting fired, or well,
Mhm.
technically she did retire,
Huh.
but she was strongly encouraged. This is great to see, but again, it cannot stop here. It cannot be basically with what happened to UNRWA. Basically, we found out
Mhm.
UNRWA has engaged in terrorism, and
Mhm.
then okay, so we stopped giving them money. They waited few months and didn't do anything, so then we started giving them money again. So in a similar way, now many people pulled off from Colombia because they this what happened was nothing new. It's just was much bigger than before, was much more public than before, so more people knew about it. So many people pulled out of Colombia, pulled out their support from Colombia. But and now with maybe there were with some college directors or deans resigned. So, and also some teachers were fired. So, but nothing I think has fundamentally changed with those
No,
universities. Not to
no.
mention there are still many more teachers. So what I'm afraid will happen is, once this blows over, once few people were fired or few people were replaced, basically people say, okay, they've done enough. We can continue
Mhm.
supporting more. This cannot stop here. Let me go with a few super chats. We have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. He says, more Alex, please. We'll try to do that. We have a super chat from Mary Mary. Thank you so much. Super chat from PC. He says, there is no Palestine, never was one. Yeah. Uh, Thank you, PC, again for a super chat. He says Jews should boycott that university. I mean,
Agreed.
everyone should.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just because it might affect you directly much more, uh, or just because it doesn't direct you as much as someone else doesn't mean you shouldn't speak out against it. And we
Mhm.
also have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. There was an something in the chat I want to comment on before we continue. Someone said,
Please.
if the university protest was calling for hostage release, will you support it? Please answer me. So again, the biggest problem I think isn't it's when it comes to sort of supporting, the biggest problem was the fact they were breaking a law. They were
Yeah.
occupying campus grounds. They were actually, that's why police had to be called. Police had to go in, and university wasn't enforcing its own rules. That's the
Mhm.
biggest problem. But of course, if let's say there were because you can protest at university if you sort of are within the sort of the rules of the university. Yeah, I would if there were values that I would support, yeah, I would support them much
So
more. Uh,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I have to say, like,
but I
I did
wouldn't
see,
excuse
yeah,
if the sort
of
of
course,
people
yeah.
for release would also occupy the grounds. Yeah, I
Well,
would have a similar problem.
that really is exactly something that happened to me like a few weeks ago, is that there were a whole bunch of people who were protesting for a hostage release, and you know, they were like banging pots and pans, and they were lighting fires, and they were doing all of these things. So yeah, and they were blocking off roads, right? And they were violating, you know, other people's rights. So yeah, so it really does depend on the context of the of the protest. And so I really I really don't think that there's any I really don't think there's any way out of this. And I do strongly feel that there's going to be a large investigation, because I think that there were several, from what I saw, I think that there were several professional terrorists basically who were embedded inside of these protests, because I heard them shouting several things in Arabic that were, you know, chants that you hear on the streets of Ramallah, right? These are like talking about like the Lion's Den chants, okay? So and it really reminded me a little bit of the Cambridge Five. So the Cambridge Five were a group of students in Cambridge University who were recruited to the NKVD back in the 1930s, right, by the Soviets. And you know, after the war, they ended up, you know, being full-on agents. So I would say as well that there's definitely been some, because you need to remember that what happened at Columbia was a front of the war. Okay, it was a part of the war. Absolutely, right. It was the part of the strategy of the Iranians was to try to put a tremendous amount of pressure on Israel. So we have to look at it as if it is as if it is that. There was, you know, a lot of it was all of a sudden overnight there were 5 million, you know, Palestinian flags, all of these, you know, tents. And it was very clear to me that this tactic of, you know, blocking off roads and causing all of this mayhem, it was a front of the war. And this will have to be, I think, thoroughly investigated, because that, you know, I can't, I wonder even if that would have been a problem for Columbia University. If somebody really was like, you know, an
Hmm.
actual terrorist that had been released from, you know, that had been released from an Israeli jail, okay, a few years ago. Like, would they even really have a problem with that? Probably not. I doubt it. Seems it's totally fine. Ambivalent towards violence, ambivalent towards savagery, accepting of, you know, all manner of just absolute like glory to the martyrs, you know, all of this stuff with the with the parachutes. Normies see that and they want to throw up. Like it you really they really overstepped the mark, because most people are not ready for that. And it's just I think a lot of the time these academics, they're so completely steeped in their own shit. And they just simply don't communicate with regular people from outside of these very closed off circles where they're, you know, just being reinforced in their own trash 24/7. That they simply don't realize how obscene, ridiculous that they sound. This woman is contributing nothing to society. All right. Why on earth she is an educator at Columbia University? It absolutely escapes me. Truly.
Yeah, and sort of going into what she did in the past. So there are two specific things I want to point out. So in 2018, she traveled as a part of 14-member human rights delegation touring Israel and the West Bank.
Yeah, I've seen this
But
before.
she was detained at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel
Ah.
Aviv before being deported from the country. Israeli authorities accused her of ties to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And I was, you know, thinking about it. And because yeah, she is actively
Hmm.
arguing against the existence of Israel. She is actively yeah, basically arguing for the destruction of Israel. While I have a respect for free speech, and I'm wondering to what extent this is basically, yeah, calling for violence against the state, or sort of calling for a dissolution of a state, if that can ever qualify for free speech. Uh,
Well, I
yeah,
don't know if you're necessarily entitled to be let into someone else's country and to just, you
yeah,
know,
that's also much
it's
different.
it's
You
like,
do screen for terrorists, you do
yeah,
screen for people with diseases.
yeah.
You,
Also, I just want to say like these like peace movements, okay? So basically what they do is it's like a tour of propaganda, right? The moment they arrive, they tell them all manner of like just complete trash about Israel, and and it's like it really is like it really reminds me of Walter Duranty, who was a New York Times journalist who went to the Soviet Union
hmm.
during the 1930s, and he said, been given this BS tour, right, by the Soviets, and he wrote in his,
Or
he wrote it in the
Tucker
New York Times.
Carlson.
Well, I mean, he wrote in the New York Times literally like the Soviets are they're hungry, but they're not starving, right? Just totally whatever you're saying to me with my little kind of, 5 minutes in the country, yeah, I'm gonna believe that and I'm gonna go for that. And it really does remind me very much of that. That it's just this you take someone and you give them this sort of out of context tour. Because think about it, if I was just to say to you, Daniel, can you believe it? There's like a massive like wall in the middle of like Jerusalem, separating Jerusalem from,
The Muslim
wow.
Quarter.
But if I was just to say that to you with no context, right? No, didn't mention anything that used to happen in 2003, didn't mention anything that used to happen in 2004, or introduced, maybe like a maimed victim from that time, then you would be like, wow, these Israelis are just total savages. They're just and she's an academic, so it's quite frightening to tell you the truth.
Well, she knows a lot about history, going back
Mm.
into October 2023. So basically, following the October 7th, following the Hamas massacre, she authored a letter signed by over 150 Columbia faculty. So again, it's not just her. Uh, uh, Basically, the letter was supporting the students, or supporting the students' right to contextualize the war in Israel Gaza
Hmm.
within the
Yeah.
75-year occupation of Palestine.
Okay, 75 year. That's pretty incredible. Wow.
Uh,
So the whole of Israel is an occupation. That's very interesting. Okay, that's
yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah, just continuing, the letter was criticized in a subsequent letter signed by 300 other Columbia faculty members. So there is a bit of a civil war, as an attempt to
Mm.
recontextualize as a salvo, as the exercise of a right to resist occupation, or as military action.
Mm.
So again, yeah, I mean, just going back historically, 75 years, that, yeah, that would mean in that would mean exactly the foundation of Israel. So yeah, from the
Nice.
start, it was again, there was a so-called two-state solution that came from the UN. Israel accepted
Yeah.
it and declared independence. Arabs didn't accept it and declared war on Israel, that
Yeah.
just declared its
Yeah.
independence. So again, any
Why not?
occupation that came out of that, which technically, I mean, depend if you accept the UN resolution or not. But even if you do, technically, yeah, Israel grabbed more land than it had, sort of, in the UN resolution, because it was declared war upon it. So
And they
again,
agreed that it's the armistice line, tough, tough shit. You shouldn't have attacked.
yeah, I mean, the idea, like, especially Yeah, like borders change. The idea that now in perpetuity Israel is
Hmm.
basically occupying it, occupying
So,
all of Israel is the so-called occupied territories. She's not talking about the West Bank. She's not talking about
mm,
Gaza or
mm,
or the Golan Heights. She's talking about
ah,
all of Israel. So
yeah,
again, you cannot hide behind any, I just want a two-state solution, or
yeah.
I just want a just resolution for the Palestinians. She wants
I
the Jews to go away.
go away. Yeah, I mean, it's also just this reading of history that's like quite kind of mental. I mean, it was the British were in control of Israel, and I really challenge anybody to tell me about some of the Palestinian institutions that existed in the kind of early, 1900s. Maybe you could tell me about the Palestinian Philharmonic Orchestra, or maybe the Palestine Post, or maybe the Palestine Soccer Club, or maybe any of the HMOs, right? Any of the maybe the National Insurance Institute, right? Maybe you can tell me about some of these, Palestinian institutions. Who ran them? Oh yeah, it was the Jews, right? So it was. So imagine taking a reading of history that is, the British were in control, and there were these two groups of people who were here, and I think that it is a tragedy that the resolution didn't go to the Arabs. Um, even though they have all of these other literal Arab only countries, okay? And there was no obligation to leave. Okay, so it was just this reading of history that is like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to argue for? Where would you have liked to take all these Jews? Where would you have liked to put them? Like,
Well, there
how
was that
about,
little part of Russia that they really wanted to put all the Jews
yeah,
in.
or Madagascar maybe. Or I mean, even just talking about, uh the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Okay, the Nazi Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who was colluding with Hitler to see, how can I get rid of all the Jews here? I mean, just think about what these people are actually saying. They're just, I don't know, they're just, I, I, I really am pleased that the mask is truly off. And oh, I'm feeling, one of the trolls in the chat is saying that the academic is way smarter than me. And, yeah, I have to say that really, it really tugs, at my ego.
Yeah, so she is gone, but as going back to the letter, it was signed by over 150 Columbia faculty, um, which it was uh, signed by a opposite letter by 300. So there are at least better, let's say, people at Columbia faculty, people who don't straight up glorify terrorism, which is a
Hmm.
really nice way to start. But there is still over 150 who, after seeing what happened on October 7th, were like, oh, okay, how can we dismake about the Jews, that the Jews are the problem here?
Hmm.
And they are somewhat successfully managing it because people are still largely anti-Israel, and if not anti-Israel, at least against the proper way Israel should defend itself, which should at the very least include a complete dissolution of Hamas and
Hmm.
reformation of the Palestinian culture. I mean, look at these people. They never call for better Palestinians. They never call for reformed Palestinians. They never call for, having something better. It's like, well, if
Yeah.
they are genocidal, then that's what
Yeah.
they are. We just have to accept their
Yeah, and
self-determination.
And if this, independent Palestinian state ended up being like Syria, then that's just the way things are meant to be. And we shouldn't disturb that, right? Because, we should just let that kind of be. It's just complete, it's just complete like psychopathy, basically. And I think that you're saying that they're winning in this kind of narrative. I don't really think so, because at the end you have to remember that these are all lies. And if your entire kind of if your entire sort of notion is based upon nothing and it's based upon lies, eventually it's just going to have to be revealed, and it will be revealed. We're seeing that happen, in real time today. Like the lie that Russia is the second greatest army in the entire world, that China is this phenomenal, center for innovation and technology. I mean, these are just lies, and it's being, revealed, and it will continue to be revealed. That's because it, the truth doesn't have anything to fear. All right. The truth just has to continue just to, just to exist.
Yeah, but the eventually part of it is what scares me. We have to be vigilant until the eventually comes.
Hmm.
Uh, all right, and with that, thank you, Alex, for joining me today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We have a super chat from Bonnie also. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. Thank you, everybody, for the support. Thank you again for watching. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone, and bye bye.
Bye bye.